how's it going? This is Jack Devine, and welcome back to another episode of Office Hours. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about your pull-off game and your hammer-on game, all right? And I just happen to have a loop in my Kemper here that I made for the guys over at Skool. We're still in the middle of cowboy camp, but it dawned on me that this is an area of playing that gets less and less talked about the further up the ladder you get as a player. But I noticed that there's a lot of fundamental skills that even emerging and pretty successful musicians are weak at. And I'm not putting it out there like I'm some sort of expert in this regard, but being a hard rock player and a high gain player for a long time, you develop some skills that maybe aren't the same that you would develop if you were coming at it from being an acoustic musician who then electrifies and kind of embraces the picking every note concept. And while there's nothing inherently wrong about picking every note, it does tend to yield a certain lack of kind of contour in a lot of, as impressive as some of my flat picking heroes are, there isn't exactly a lot of ebb and flow because they don't utilize, or they can't utilize because they're using acoustic instruments. But on the electric guitar, we have enough compression in the circuit that we can effectively create a silent attack by virtue of either releasing pressure on the string, right, by pulling down just a little bit, not enough to make it go sharp. We're not looking for that. We're looking for just, no, but it must be there. Otherwise, it's not a pull off. It's a let go or a lift up. And you hear the difference here in terms of the richness of the sound between these two notes. And this can be done in perpetuity. And we're not hearing it pulling sharp like a little squawking chicken kitty cat kind of sound. We don't want that. All right. And likewise, there's the converse of the pull off, the hammer on. Right. Not the put down, but the hammer on. Okay. There's a difference. Hammer on is different than put down your finger. Okay. And so many players don't know how to develop this skill and have it work in conjunction with what I consider to be proper right hand picking etiquette or hygiene or habits, whatever you want to call it, the right hand behavior, all right, or picking hand behavior, all right. And I just happen to have the El Paso loop up because it dawns on me that this is actually a skill that's utilized a lot in these quieter, more intimate moments that you play through, where you're not necessarily looking to blast out at a constant note velocity. You're looking to actually have the signal of the guitar vary dynamically, okay? So let's just look at just like a good example is this little area around the D chord here, right? All right, I'm playing, right, I'm out of this G-shaped D chord. And you can hear the pull-off from the suspended 4, the 9 back to the root. Okay, now that little, slur is effectively a one-fingered pull-off, right? We're actually just pulling back, right? But we need to realize that it's not just pick up the finger a little bit and put it there. That's not going to get it done. We need to maintain downward force. Again, the little pull-off there, and then another one. Now, not kids, but, well, guys my age, when we were kids, we worked on our pull-offs and our hammer-ons quite a bit. All right. This is mainly because the tutorials about picking and how to pick and all that stuff like that really wasn't on people's minds until Yngwie showed up. And by then, most of the world was already pregnant with the concepts that they had onboarded from Eddie Van Halen, which he and Angus Young and Derringer and all the guys that were happening in the 70s, right, until Yngwie comes up with the economy picking, and later with Eric Johnson. These picking dynamics were not really understood for many years later, until Troy Grady kind of did his magnum opus with the pick slanting and stuff like that. And that guy deserves a debt of gratitude from everybody in our community if you're a serious student of the instrument. So let's just talk a little bit about that. Let's see if we can find anybody. I don't think anybody's interested enough to be here. I see Coaster Cook saying hi, Jack, which is nice, though dangerous to say on an airplane. Okay, so we're here looking at this kind of sound. So I'm basically allowing the pick to be the spike and the pull-offs to be the recession, right? So over top of this kind of... Now listen to the rhythm. Sorry, I was talking, couldn't hear the backing track and lost the rhythm as I was telling you what to do, okay? So that's a pull-off, actually a hammer-on, and a pull-off, and then my hand can turn around, right? And nowhere in the Garcia sphere is it more evident that you don't have your pull-off game together than in those kinds of those kinds of licks, okay? Okay, so my looper is giving me static these days. Yeah, come on, play please. All right, so back again, right? If we're looking at those. You can see how important it is on these kind of quieter, more intimate ballads where we're doing this kind of ebbing and flowing to have some smoother attack than the pick stroke, right? Because we're playing with what? A pretty sharp and pointed tone in the first place, right? A lot of treble. So if we want all that texture without having to pick every note, which is also very difficult, right? It's incumbent upon us to learn how to do the pull-offs, okay? So one of the drills that I remember learning as a kid that helped get this going, right, which is like, hopefully we'll get to a takeaway for you guys pretty early in the call here, and or whatever you want to call this thing, this office hours thing. Because until you guys are asking me questions and that I don't really, then it's just me kind of blathering on, but that's cool. All right, howdy from Shanghai. That's cool, dude. I'm kind of curious about what's going on in that part of the world. So is this, all right, if we come up and think about this, all right, let's talk about El Paso for a second. We might as well diverge for a moment here. Key of D major. Out in the West Texas town of El Paso, I fell in love with a Mexican girl. Right, until we get to the chorus part, which is over. Once we see that D7 come in, we're now in the key of, that's the transition chord to modulate to the key of G major. Out of the back door of roses I ran, out where the horses were tied. See how we've got that C over that bridge section? That means we're in a different key because D major does not have a C in it. And the rest of the song is not in D mixolydian, therefore in G. No, the rest of the song is in, if we start out here, That's literally like, that's 1, 4, and 5. And even though the Marty Robbins version does, right? Okay, all that cutesy pie kind of stuff. All right, so one of the things you can do is go to your D major scale, right? And go. You can do that with your thumb here, or drop your hand and get here. Dee da da dee dee da. Okay, so these 3 notes we're gonna be able to walk it down, right? All right, so if we can do that, we're looking at that as the outer 2 notes. Outer upper, outer lower, inner upper, inner back. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right. Okay. And we want to be able to come up the scale as well. And when we get to that D7 sound, we're going to then change the G major, right? That's going to be. See that C note? That's where it appears, okay? So if you wanted to use the El Paso backing track here as a way of practicing your pull-offs, that would be what you would want to do. So you just want to shift your scale patterns to include shapes from the 2 parent scales that are the home keys of the 2 sections, namely this part being in D major. Okay, it's not going to sound particularly good. It's just a matter of working on your strength. This isn't how we play. We utilize pull-offs and hammer-ons as a way of kind of running through areas that we don't want to actually have to use the athletic. We don't want an athletic sounding right hand. We want to sound relaxed. Right? Or using trills. Okay, so we can practice those as well. Okay, and the way we're doing this, we're not playing on the flat parts of our finger as much as we're getting a little bit more downward pressure, a little bit more rotation. Okay, so my fingers are kind of arching up a little bit more rather than going flat like that. They tend to come out a little bit more to get a little bit more downward pressure. And what's really key is that you keep your fingers up close to the forward edge of the fret. Not on it, but certainly not in the middle of the fret. Okay? The amount of force that you need to create a clean sound varies exponentially the closer you get to the fret. Okay? So if you're interested in getting your pull-off and hammer-on game together, those are 2 or 3 great pointers, in my opinion, for getting it there. Now, I'm using El Paso as a vehicle to practice that. Can I do the riff a little bit slower? You mean the beep, 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 boop, that part? Sure, absolutely. Let's take a look at that, right? But here it would be, so that's the outer, front, outer, rear. That's our first pull-off. Then we're going to hammer on in the middle, then come up, pull off, and then dee da dee 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 da. So D would be, so that's position 1, 7, 6, then how I was just playing normal, and then all of a sudden I went. By just keeping the pressure on, I don't go. And that sounds kind of wooden. We want to have that fluidity of, you know. Okay. It also creates a thinner sound, right? There's less percussion and less woomph behind it. Every note doesn't have a big. And while those can sound very authoritative and beautiful, what they can't do or don't do quite so easily is sound frail. And there's a certain degree of romanticism associated with these trills and that sound. And it sounds very, you know, kind of like a troubadour kind of thing, like a little, you know, like that kind of like. It sounds very tender, and that's kind of what this is all about, actually, is helping to use the technique to not only facilitate the right hand, but also to further the aesthetics of the music that we're trying to make here. Well, let's see. I see there's been a little action here on my phone, which is functioning as my teleprompter. Can I do the riff a little slower? I already took that. So, Small Benin, New York. Oh, I see. Yeah, Greenberry's in a significantly less fancy pants place than Shanghai, for sure. Man, that's cool. After it's posted, you can slow it down to a crawl with the settings. That's true. That's definitely one of the wonders of the Vadami looper pedal as well, which if you guys are interested in, you can search it up on my channel. There's a whole expose on that Vadami reached out to me and asked me to be an affiliate, whatever it is, I think 4 or 5 years ago. I fell in love with that unit, and it really does help quite a bit with that kind of stuff. This is probably further down the line in the video, but I wanted to ask before going to work and the live stream is over, when hitting an emotional peak in a solo, what are some hammer and pull-off licks that you can use? You know, the truth is I don't have a kind of a prescribed, list of hammer-on pull-off licks, you know, but you know, if I'm looking at the, I do like the, that kind of thing. So that's a 4-note trill. Then you can go, like, that's, or you could move and be able to keep using this like line of fingers. Whoops, sorry. And that would sound nice over our 5 chord on the way down. So if we were doing, come on, you please work. Right here. So I'm very selective about when I decide to put the hammer down with the pick, because it's quite declarative, okay? Everything other than that, I'm trying to be like kind of tippy-toeing around. Right? Even when I'm using the pick, I'm trying to kind of match the texture. You barely have to do anything with this much treble, and clarity that's afforded to you from an unfiltered middle pickup Strat into a pretty bright twin, all right, sound, or a Fender, blackface. I've got a little bit of overdrive baked in to kind of round off the high end. If you don't, it can get a little ice pick and it can kind of ear fuck you a little bit. So look out for that. See if anybody had any other questions. So it's not really a Mr. Mike 51. It's not really further down the line in the video. But, I mean, the truth is, when you're looking for peaks, that's probably where you're going to probably lean on the pick a little bit more rather than that. Other than if you're looking to withdraw gracefully, nothing can match the power of those pull-offs, those what I call peel and pivot licks, okay, where you're peeling away from over the A chord, from the root, and you go and peel back, and then pivot. So you get that kind of sound. It's very kind of trickling and twinkling. It's a very pretty sound. So over top of the major chord, you're probably going to be thinking about those. That right there, that's kind of nice because think that's the root. So if we were going right here, right there is just so Garcia too. This, all right, he's just all up and down in that little area, right? Okay, don't forget we're in 6/8 or 3/4, whatever you want to think about. It's a triple meter. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Forget about that C, okay? That's one of the best notes in this whole song. In case you don't know what's happening there, we're playing D major, right? Like this kind of thing. G, A, 7, right? That's one time. Then the second time, same thing. And then on the third time, we're gonna have the same idea, right? Finally, modulate to the key of G. This is all over a D7 sound. Still over D7. And now we're in the shared. Back to D major. Just hear how pretty those hammer-ons and pull-offs sound, all right? There's no way I could ever possibly play that slowly with that much, or play that with my pick and have there be that much tenderness implied, okay? There's a certain fluidity to what I'm doing here that is only acquirable, all right, or attainable through the use of this technique. So let's really try to hunker down a little bit when we can and learn. Sorry, I'm upside down. That's bad. Come on, you. Let's really try to hunker down a little bit and focus in on how to create that. So if you're unfamiliar with just kind of going like this, I'm not pulling down that far, but you can see there is some pulling down. Without even using the pick, this can be sustained. So if I go, this is not a bad way to just see if you've got enough downward force. Try playing without your hand, your right hand a little bit. Right? That's tough, right? So you can kind of see where you actually have the opportunity to do it. You don't really have a hammer-on opportunity. That just going like that, that's good for the pick. So, and what you'll see is that this causes the player to kind of reconsider the use of the upstroke, you know. All right, and it's just all over the good musicians that you love who play the guitar, that is. All right, if every single note gets played, it starts to sound a little bit too methodical and too much like a power drill, in my opinion. And yeah, I'm talking to you, Al Di Meola, and you know, whatever, John Petrucci or whatever generation of listener you're after. Can we explain the thumb over? I can't tell when it matters or when it's kind of a reflex. Sorry. So, sorry, this is at Mike 668. The thumb over, you mean, well, there's a couple of different uses for the thumb on the guitar. Primary use is acting as something for our hand to push against, right? So we've talked an awful lot about like where in the fret we're supposed to actually be pressing down, right? So center of the fret, not so great, but better than the back of the fret. Listen to the clarity, right? If I press down as hard as I need to in the front and then move it to the back, I get this buzzy clarity, less so, and perceivably less clear. I'm not pressing any less. So in order to achieve the same clarity, we have to use more downward force, so then we end up exhausting the little muscles in the fingers. So the closer you are, the more efficient you are, so you're going to have better tone and greater fluidity, okay? You're just using less of your hand's headroom, so to speak, or hand room, okay? So the idea is that we want to have the same kind of thing amortized across every note that we play. Those efficiencies, they start to stack up really fast. So when the thumb is properly placed, okay, then the hand, these fingers, don't have to press against something soft like this, okay, which is harder, right? Because they have to then, not only do they have to press here, they have to press hard enough, kind of like tightening something together by using a screw to pull it snug. We're actually having to press harder on this side to push through this mushy thing here, rather than the claw that we have, like a pinching kind of ability here. So you don't want to undo needlessly. You don't want to undo hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. So you want to keep the thumb roughly located behind the middle finger or index finger. That isn't unless the hand is kind of rotating a little bit to accommodate bigger stretches like this. You'll notice that when my pinky reaches up to grab that third, my hand is somewhat kind of diagonal, right? Kind of like if I was holding a tug of war rope or maybe even a golf club, you know, kind of like that. You see how your fingers are going to kind of do that? And it's reasonable enough. If we can form a C chord like this rather than like this, there's no reason why we can't take that shape and bring it up here. And so every now and again, though, you know, you'll see my hand diagonal, but my thumb's still right in the middle. Like that rather than like that, all right? Now, the thumb over also exists for the absolute necessity of bending up into something. So if we don't have something to push against, then we can't use our wrist. We end up using the fingers rather than the wrist to create our bends, okay? And this will, again, fatigue the smaller muscles and also reduce your ability to kind of add a controlled vibrato once at pitch. Because I'm using the wrist to do the heavy lifting, and then while I'm there, I can invoke the power of the little guys. If I already am using the little guys to create the main thing, it becomes a lot easier for it to be a little less supported, right? At least that's what I find, okay? So thumb needs to come over sometimes for that. It also needs to come over for muting. If I was playing, let's say I was playing Franklin's, okay? Stitch, I've got a little overdrive circuit here, but... So let's say that I was doing that. You'll see that the index finger is handling the high E string, and the thumb is handling the low E string, and therefore I can get a full strum on it. So the thumb has to come over for that. Otherwise, then I'm going to be every strum. I have to be mindful to get out by the A string and not hit the E string for fear of hearing this. I can't calculate how important that is, okay, to be able to do that. Now, some people will say, well, you can drape your index finger and put that down, and then top of the index finger can handle just barring that. But you're really tying up quite a lot of musculature by doing that. Not only that, you're also engaging this rotation that has to happen, right? If you do this, your hand can stay in a relaxed position and play a tune like Franklin's in that C chord shape, which is kind of demanding if you do it like this for infinite amount of time. I would fatigue like this. The other thing is it tends to, by doing that, you end up putting the energy closer to the high E string. And you get more of that high E sound rather than keeping it from like A to A. Which is where I like it, rather than... All right. But that's just kind of a pretty subtle thing, but that certainly is something to consider about when the thumb comes over. And last but not least, you have the big dog, who's kind of like, it's kind of like those kind of chords, or where you're using the thumb to play the low note of a, It was very important to have that together because right, you don't want to be hearing this and having to rotate your hand out like that to maintain the low end. That's why you'll see Garcia forming 99.9% of his E chord shaped bar chords with the thumb handling the low end, okay? It's just significantly more relaxing than doing this, okay? So good luck playing, beat it on down the line going. It's kind of painful. You could, right? I mean, you can do it. Right, it's painful though. All right, so those are the reasons why I thumb over that, and if I'm doing like build-up chords, like if I was doing something where I was going like, there's kind of, let's do one at A, then coming down and forming an A7 sound. But primarily, I think about the thumb over as those chords. right? Okay, can't really do that without the thumb over. All right, so can I explain the thumb over? Can't tell when it matters or when it's kind of a reflex. So the reflexive side would probably be the muting. So this is still back to you, Mike, 668. That's primarily done reflexively as part of my muting technique with my left hand when I want to relinquish the right hand from any obligation to keep tabs on the low end of the strings. And oh, yeah, well, I mean, okay, so somebody here says, Yem says that the C shape, he uses the pinky to mute the E string. I guess I've got a dinky pinky. This just seems so much more stout. But you know what? You do you. That's why my thumb comes over. And I tend to use it a lot. No big deal, but still something to consider. You know, you've got this extra finger, you might as well put it to use. All right, whether it's helping you fret cleaner, all right, or reach farther, right, or mute strings, or helping you bend, right. Right. Otherwise, what are you pulling against, right? You're doing that, okay. So I'm constantly using it as something to push against. All right, for upward. You could watch me noodle all day. Sorry, I guess I have devolved into thanks. It's the Franklin and later. I'm not quite sure what that means, but I agree with the idea about, you know, everybody's going to have their own way of doing this stuff. But if you don't have one, find one quickly because it's definitely necessary. Okay. So look around, my friends, and see what you can find. I suggest you figure out a way to increase what we refer to in the audio industry as signal to noise, right? So we're trying to minimize the amount of fat on the note that we're presenting. Or if we're going to add fat, we do it deliberately, right? Like what you just saw me do. When I dug into that note, I deliberately raked across the bottom strings. I'm deliberately introducing that kind of stuff to give it a little extra. You just want want to be in control. That's really the main thing. The second the guitar gets away from you, I mean, wild and wonderful things can happen like that. But generally speaking, you're not looking for that randomized loss of control that happens at the cutting edge of like real. If a virtuoso loses control, there's a high likelihood that still something very musical is going to come out. I'm not a virtuoso, but I am a capable technician with thousands of hours spent under the hood of this thing trying to get it to be my bitch. All right. So the second it's not, it gets a little interesting. The second I push myself past my comfort zone, that's where it gets kind of interesting for me. And at the same time, I know when I'm doing it. I know when I'm losing control on purpose or going off of the things that I already feel super confident about. So I hope each of you has like a little playbook in your mind about the things that the songs that you're already playing, what you do over them. The lack of deliberation in your playing is probably one of the reasons why your lines lack a certain amount of punch and direction, is that they don't have. All right. Now, what's funny is that pretty soon, just like the way you don't rehearse having a conversation with friends, these songs become friends. Okay. And so you can have a conversation with the song that isn't premeditated, but you already understand the central topic that we're discussing. So El Paso is our topic, and I have a couple of like go-to moves, right? Let's say I'm going to pick one. Let's say it's coming up through the dyads of the chord, right? And then coming up into the G chord, and then so D, G, and then A. Back to D. Okay, through A. So one. Let's see if I can get the looper to start on time. Nope. Nope. Still no. We got to use. All right. Let's just get it going, and then I'll do it the next time. All right. So you'll see it here. Boom, 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 boom. Right here. While I was rehearsing it prior to doing that, I'd never went up here and went. The fact that I could overshoot it and then come back to it was made up on the spot. But it's not like I've never done that before. It just wasn't part of the plan, but it's not outside of the realm of possibilities. It's not off the table. It's just like using an extra few words in a sentence to make your point seem more eloquent or dramatic, or to make it fit nicer into the rhythm that we actually have afforded to us. So as I'm coming up through this kind of vague idea of utilizing the concept of okay, game plan. Now let's see how everybody's got a plan when they get into a fight, until they get punched in the nose, and then things go weird. So what then? That's where having the infrastructure of having gone up and down in these, right, and right, you want that familiarity so that if something goes sideways a little bit, you can kind of regain your sea legs and land on your feet. So. Something like that. Come on, bitch. Start, looper. I gotta get on the stick with what's wrong. There we go. Fuck you. Let's try the neck pickup. this brings me to another topic. If you look at any like early El Pasos, we're talking 1972 or something like that. Like the Veneta one is a great example because you can actually see what Bob Weir is doing. You can actually see what Jerry Garcia is doing. Neck pickup, strat the whole time, right? All right. Now, granted, my tone I think sounds a little bit better in terms of getting over top of the bass track on the middle. With that little extra mid-range bark afforded to me by the middle pickup. But if I'm being like true to what was taking place, this was not off the table. Jerry loved that neck pickup. He used it all up and down the continent of Europe. Okay, and this became a big thing for him. Same with this bridge pickup. No tone control even on it. Just wide open bridge pickup snarkiness. Okay. So a lot of time you hear that the climax of a solo starts out on the neck on the middle, and then he'll like end up here going like, and like really have it be kind of piercing. But the right kind of, if you hurt at the end, it can be kind of powerful. Okay, so don't be afraid to get out of that middle pickup ghetto that a lot of Garcia players tend to find themselves living inside of. Yours truly included here, okay? So let's see if we've got anybody else saying anything here. Since we last spoke, I'm learning Bob's parts for the entire Terrapin suite. You and me both, actually. I just taught a class with Mickey Toop on that, and actually he guided me through quite a bit of that, and then I spent some good time listening. If you're interested, there's some nice dyads that are happening in a couple of those moments where he's going, if we get the... right here. Right, that. Very cool. And you can also do that up the C chord instead of going. Right, you can go. Right, and then we're back into it. Anyway, really cool. There's also a couple of times where we think in that little section that we're hearing as the D, but sometimes you hear him do that like that. Even you'll hear an overtone of the F above it, or even as high as like that kind of sound. So it's really a pretty compelling examination of Bob's work, in particular the recorded version of it. The recorded version has stuff on it that there's two guitars playing, so you have to kind of incorporate a couple of things. It's really an excellent piece of kind of work because Bob's part is kind of prioritized over Jerry's on the recording, rather than live, which you'll hear both the Bob and a lot of the the kind of... all that business, okay? Really lovely song in a lot of ways. Although I do tend to think that there's too many words, but it's hard to be critical of Bohemian Rhapsody or any of these epics. It's hard to be critical of Lawrence of Arabia. So much richer than how I thought to play that section. Yeah, you mean the harmonized part? This is Sam Jones 24566. If you take a listen to what's on the recording, that stuff is there. If you look at how Bob's playing live, he strips it back to make sure, that, by lowering the bar, you increase your ability to focus on the more important things, which is being in time, in tune, in the groove, and remembering the words. There's a lot to remember with when you don't have the ability to stop and read and punch in. So that's just me having indigestion from eating. I ate too many eggs this morning, I suppose. I have real digestive problems. That sucks. I don't even eat before I perform for like hours because I'm afraid of indigestion on stage. It sucks. So if any of you guys out there is a GI specialist, let's talk. So look, that's about it. I mean, hammer-ons and pull-offs are kind of a hidden treasure in my arsenal of tricks, and I utilize them quite a lot. I mean, I rely on them immeasurably to achieve the results that I like. And I can't imagine if somebody told me, "Hey, guess what? You got to pick every note." It would not sound great. It would not sound as varied. It's helps me create the spice blend that I like between, and because the funny thing is, if you stack up a run of triplet pull-offs and stuff like that, the push and pull is really a wonderful part of it, rather than being, which sounds very cool too, but that has its own little kind of picky sound, and that sounds nice too. But I also like the okay, and there's no denying that Jerry did that too. All right, so this isn't a substitute for being able to do alternate picking. It's just there's times where it's beneficial to have some other controls. Okay, so that's it for today for me. Actually, if you guys have something you want to talk about, I would love to see if I could help out. Other than that, then this would actually be an office hour, not an office hours, which most of these things, I'm happy to do them, but they are lasting 2 hours at a time, pretty consistently. I'm actually leaving town for a little bit to go to the booming metropolis of Ithaca, New York, to sit in a hotel room for a few days while my son swims in a national swim-off. We're going to get that back behind me. I hate having a white screen behind me. So the idea is that I will not be able to do anything like this because I don't have all this rigmarole behind me to contribute to furthering my cause, which, as you well know, is both as hopefully a wonderful and harmless blend of altruism and self-motivated promotion. I do have a business. I do run a business, but I also didn't run a business. I haven't really changed what I do other than adding an opportunity for me to actually make some money doing what I always did, which was give away what I know. So I do appreciate anybody who's joining in and wanting to get involved. So what can I say? I do teach at Skool on the Skool platform, and it is a subscription service, and it is a premium level product for people that are interested in furthering their understanding of this music. How do I see? Okay, it was interesting to see me harmonize that part of Terrapin. I saw someone post them playing the Europe 72 Do, and they harmonized the walk up before the first solo. So Sam Jones is saying, you mean the boom, 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 boom. That part? I guess I don't really hear that making too much sense, considering that all 4 members of the band that have notes attached to their instruments are harmonizing that line in the first place. But you need to Yeah, harmonize. Okay, so this is a very, very important part. Okay, you get great quiet tones just through headphones. Yeah, this is just the Kemper. This is going out to DMC 549. All right, so yeah, so there's no speaker actually on in my room right now. I don't think there is anyway. Yeah, nothing. So right now, this right here is hearing, this is what's going on in the room. Bye-bye, Kemper. And I'm talking, right? That's how you're hearing me. So that's why I lean down to talk into the microphone to make sure it's clear. And I know that people, sometimes have balance issues. I don't mean mentally, although that's true too. I mean, on my broadcasts, sometimes the guitar is too loud or the voice isn't loud enough. I'm not a shouter, at least here. I do raise my voice in my home, but I try to be calm when I'm talking about music. I don't want it to stress people out. But the idea is that this is one element, and then if I mute that, and then sometimes when they get combined, you hear a little bit of my pick maybe raking the strings or the mic kind of getting ruffled here while I'm playing. But by and large, what you're hearing is just the direct out of the Kemper with its phony speakers, simulation, circuitry, and stuff like that, which isn't really a speaker sim. It's not like what do you call it? An impulse response. It's not that. It's actually the speaker that was in the amp at the time that the profile was taken. So it's kind of like a digital mellotron used to record actual flutes, right? Hitting the actual notes, and then you would actually be playing a tape recorded version of an actual flute, but the flute itself was actually intact. Now, depending on the flautist, and the embouchure and the tone that flautist was able to achieve, your roll of tapes on your mellotron may or may not sound as good. But granted, the mellotron tapes, the tape libraries came as a preset thing. It's a very arcane and interesting instrument. If you're unaware of what a mellotron is, you've definitely heard it. It's the opening sound on Strawberry Fields by the Beatles. And in other bands like the Moody Blues and the Zombies and everybody. It's a great sound. All right, it's very creepy kind of psychedelic sound. It's also, if I'm not mistaken, it's the sound on Kashmir, the strings. So anyway, the way that this is obtained is I've got zero gain on the amp. So if I'll give you a little breakdown here of all the things that are going on. This is the actual sound, okay? And there's a little reverb. Now I hit this button, and that turns on an overdrive pedal. Actually, no, it's just a level, it's like a clean boost into an overdrive pedal. So I've got two different things happening here. So you can hear the high end kind of gets muted. Kind of warms up the sound and gives it a little bit of girth. All right, then if I hit this turns on a little boost in the post. And that's pretty much it. The only other thing that's happening is I have a little level gain before all of that circuitry that's adding a slight amount of a compressed sound. And I don't always have that on, but on these kind of quiet ballads where I know I'm going to be doing some pokey lines like, I don't want those to really go so crazy. So I always put the compressor before the overdrive so that it's very smooth. Whatever's going into the overdrive doesn't have any real dynamics, and it stays nice and smooth. Nice and smooth. If I take that off, it just kind of loses a little thickness too. Listen, off. And now on. Not only does it get louder, but it also gets smoother. I turned on a noise gate. So there's some very fine tuning and little bits of chicanery that are taking place here. don't forget that when you hear recorded music, you're definitely hearing all kinds of outboard processing, the cabling and the mastering, the equalization at mixdown. You're always hearing something more than just the actual tone of the guy's amp. Okay, so I don't really make any bones about utilizing some of these tools to kind of get my sound the way I like it. But primarily what's going on is it's an overbright sound. It's focused on the upper end of the sound, not the lower. I'm not on the neck pickup, and I don't have a lot of bass baked into the tone. All right, I am rolling off the highs because I don't want it to be too shrill, though. I will tell you that. Okay, it is Justin Terrapin is asking, is that the deluxe reverb from Mr. Thingy 71? Oh, Mr. Thingy is, yes. Justin's answering the question. He knows what it is. Hey, Justin, it's great to see you here, bud. Yeah, this is a deluxe reverb of the deluxe super and twin reverb profiles that I bought from Top Jimmy when I bought the Kempers 6 years ago. This was the one I liked the most. And I just bedded down with that and have made a commitment to making that my... touching something metal on the floor. Causing a ground loop. Barefoot boy. So that's what's happening here. So pull out game or pull off. Did I say pull out? Did I really write pull out? Oh, God. Tell me I'm not. No, good. Whew. Pull off. Good. Jesus. My Catholic friends would be mortified. Anyway, Jesus. Oh, that's you again, Justin. You fucking pain in the ass. I love this kid. You great guy. Justin and I have been friends for quite a while. He and I have been working together both at Skool, and when he comes to New York, we get a chance to hang out a little bit. I'm looking forward to maybe getting out to LA and seeing him. Maybe he'll get me on a golf course again, and I can show him how pitiful I am at that. And whatever, guitar-wise, though, he's a really great young emerging player in the scene, and I look forward to seeing how he matures over the next 10, 15 years. He's already a monster, so it's going to be really fascinating to see him do his thing. So that's the amp thingy. Mr. Thingy is the Kemper 70. The Kemper, what do we call it? Top Jimmy profile there. All right, so I don't really have too much more to offer. Something weird happened to my headphones. There we go. I got it all back. All right, so any questions, anything to ask? I'm happy to field those questions. Otherwise, I think I might just have to bugger off. My son is preparing for the SAT in early next month, and we're getting out of town here. He's on break, and I'm stealing his vacation, his spring break, by making him work upstairs in the kitchen while I do this, and I better check in on the boy, make sure he's getting stuff done. All right. Adios, everybody.